For all the latest from the world of motoring, hit that subscribe button and stay connected. With a name that invokes a lot of history, the all-new iteration of the Africa Twin from Honda came to India in May 2017 and brought along with it its unique dual-clutch transmission. Gautam got his Africa Twin almost immediately after its launch and joins us today to share his ownership experience. Hi Gautam, it's great to have you here. And right now the biking scene, the adventure biking scene in India is really opening up, and there are a lot of options from Triumph and from BMW. Of course, we have the multi-starters and then the Africa Twin. How did you zero in on the Africa Twin and how's the experience been so far with it?
Right, so I think this became a very obvious choice because I do a lot of research before I buy any of my bikes. In fact, any of my bikes. And in the consideration set was a Tiger 800 XCA, XCX, both of them. Not the XR so much because I like kind of bikes that can go off-road well. Touring, yes, but off-roading also kind of touring is great. There was the GS from the whole gamut of the GSs that are here. There was also the Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled, which I was kind of keen on. Right, might not be the same bike, but it's similar and does similar stuff.
Yeah, and lighter.
And lighter, right? And there was the Ducati multi-starters, both 950s and 950 and the 1250, the 1200. Sorry. But somewhere of all the reviews in my research, and I must have scoured every single English video from Australia, from the UK and from the US, comparing these bikes. And after my first ride, I think I was sure this was a bike. It's the price is to thrills ratio. I think it's unmatchable by the others.
Right? Yeah, probably the GSs were like way,
GSs are way too expensive. They're great machines. A lot of my friends have them. They're great machines, but yes, they're very expensive. And I've not heard very nice things about the service and the dealership and everything. I mean, they continuously crib. And in fact, on this machine, I have been loving every single minute of it. I was a little apprehensive in the beginning if I had made the right choice with the DCT. But I think it was the right choice at the end. I'm every single minute I'm loving it.
Now, the Africa Twin, at least on paper, it seems a bit underpowered compared to its rivals. And then there's the whole DCT equation. How does that experience come into the actual riding in real life conditions?
I mean, that's a loaded question, right? I'd say there are three parts to it. First part is about the power the bike makes. Second part is about how it's delivered to the rider, to the DCT in this case. And the third part is about the rider modes that the rider has at his disposal to play with the bike. Right? I'll start with part one, the power. I had enough apprehensions of my own saying, oh my god, 88 or 89 horsepower, is it going to be good enough? Right? Is it going to be fast enough? I have a lighter machine with more power, which and how would this behave? I think two things we got to understand, right? What Honda did with this machine when they brought it to India, outside in the Western Hemisphere, it's available with 95 horsepower. I think they detuned it to suit the Indian fuel conditions.
Yeah, the norms and
norms and fuel conditions and other things. But yes, it took a dent on the power. I think I haven't ridden the 95 horsepower, so I don't know what's the difference. But I think it's what people get confused with is top speed and 0 to 100. They confuse with average speeds. Right. I would be very happy to have a friend on a super sport or even one of these multi 1200s, right? Which have 160 horsepower, right? Riding, right? And I wouldn't be too far behind. Right? As far as the others are concerned, this is faster than the others, even with a deficit in power because of the way it's delivered. Again, average speeds, not exactly 0 to 100, not exactly top speed that you touch, because you're not riding at the top
you
speed.
keep on a ride essentially.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right? How much time do you take from here to Goa, for instance? I did it in 7 hours on this.
Okay.
Right? Right. So and in the night essentially. So I didn't have any. I don't think that really counts.
Okay.
And long hours in the saddle at really high speeds, no problem. The DCT or the dual clutch transmission works pretty much like it does in, let's say, the higher end European cars, right? And it's almost it's an automatic. Essentially, it's not almost. It is an automatic.
Yeah.
Right, with paddle shifts. So these allow me to shift gears really quickly.
Okay.
Should I overcook a corner? And these are lightning shifts. There is no manual error. There's no room for human error.
Lag as well.
There's no room for human error also, right? Where I've kind of chosen a wrong gear, or I didn't hit the gear properly or whatever. It kind of gets stuck between two.
False neutral.
There are no false neutrals here.
Yeah.
Right? So the DCT actually is, again, I went in myself with a lot of apprehension.
Okay.
So I understand how people feel about it, especially people who've not ridden the bike.
Yeah.
Right? They it's a lot of hearsay. I would ask them to actually go and watch more videos done by, let's say, informed journalists, who are actually bajawing these bikes on tracks and everything. People who are using these bikes on tracks.
But why on track, right?
Right? So, and understand. Maybe ask one of your friends who has one to lend you one and get comfortable with it and ride. The switch gear is a little confusing initially, but it's nothing that a few kilometers under you can't solve. Okay. Right? So I am in love with the DCT. With every single minute, it's only growing. When you're attacking ghats, for example, right now, let me just break down the DCT. It comes with the drive mode.
Okay.
It comes with a manual mode. Right?
Okay.
I can ride it only in a manual mode. I don't need to go to a DCT and use the paddle shift to change gears. Which I don't think is necessary, because the bike's very intuitive. Whether in an off-road situation, thanks to the sensors that tell the bike whether it's going up or down slope, or whether I'm braking or not, and it changes gears accordingly.
Okay.
Right? It also has 3 sport modes.
Okay.
The sport modes are typically like S1 is great for when you're in the traffic in a city and you're darting from one light to the other, or when you're tucking between, when you're filtering through traffic, or when you're kind of playing with those naughty KTM and Pulsar boys. You kind of playing with them, and
they always want
right. So it's a lot of fun. When you hit the ghats, when you're out on the flat highway, the D mode's enough.
Okay.
You're cruising at 160, 170. There's no hassles. Okay. It's very stable, rock solid, in fact. And I have a very similar feeling at about 160 on this, of being in control, as I used to have on my Bullet at about, on my 500s at about 80, 100 ish. So, of being able to stop, being able to change direction, being able to
essentially being in control of
react.
The bike. Yeah.
Right.
Confident.
Right. But coming back to the sport mode holds the gear for longer. Okay. Right. So when I'm attacking ghats, I want to stay in normally a lower gear, where I don't want the gear to shift to a higher gear. Right. So it will hold the gear. S2 is great. S3 is just a bit too aggressive, unless and until I'm racing on the ghats, which I haven't been. Right. I ride fast, but I don't race in the ghats. Yeah. Right. And that's fast enough is good enough for a lot of people. Right. S2 is great enough. It's good enough for me to have engine braking and traction control at the same time. Not traction control, but traction. The interesting thing about this bike is that a lot of its weaknesses, as outlined by a lot of other riders of other bikes, adventure bikes especially, is actually its strength.
Okay.
The lack of electronic nannies.
Okay.
The accessibility of the buttons, right? The G mode, the ABS, the traction control on the go. The fact that I don't have to scroll through multiple menus, I don't have to come to a stop, right? Change the mode, do all that. It's not necessary, right?
Okay.
It's just a flick of a switch, on the go, on the fly. I'm rolling.
You don't have no hassle of finding the right menu and changing different modes.
Nothing. I don't have to come to a stop. Like while others come to a stop when they hit a dirt patch, I don't have to. I can just continue.
Okay.
Right, and when we hit tarmac again, I can just switch the tarmac or the traction control using my finger, right? And that's it. It's on the fly, right? So less electronics. I mean, you can't wish away electronics, unfortunately, in this new generation of bikes. And thankfully for that, because it's kind of saving us, right? There's a reason why they're called nannies. They keep us riders safe, right? But too much of nannying is a bit irritating, I think, right? Especially the fact that if you stuck up a slope, you know, and you're trying to set the rider modes, it's silly. You know,
this on the go you can change it, and which means more time riding.
Which brings me to one thing that I kind of forgot to add when we were talking about the DCT. And which is this bike's biggest advantage off-road. When you're stuck somewhere, this bike doesn't stall.
Right? So yeah, of course.
You don't have to modulate the clutch. And for novice riders, people, or I wouldn't call them novices, I'd say even experienced road riders switching to dirt, right? The clutch modulation, how much to modulate, how much not to modulate, it becomes a bit of a, of course, everything can be learned really quickly, and depending on your learning curve, your ability, you'll learn faster than the others. But there is nothing called stalling on this bike. It doesn't stall at all.
Yeah, DCT, right? It's the biggest advantage.
It doesn't stall at all. No matter what happens, it doesn't stall. And that, I think, is one of the best things you could possibly do to yourself, or do yourself a favor when you're off-road.
Alright, now let's move to the handling and braking of this bike. Now, at the end of the day, the Africa Twin is a big motorcycle. How has your experience been with it in handling all the different terrain that you took it to?
This bike, in fact, is probably the easiest of the ADV machines out there to handle. And this is true for riders of all heights, of all experiences, of all expertise, right? There are few factors that contribute to it. It's got the highest ground clearance and the lowest seat height. Right? That's fairly counterintuitive. I think that's also because of the way Honda's packaged the bike. When the bike came out, there were a few concerns around the bike's weight. 242 kilos. My God, it's really like a heavy bike, and is it going to be cumbersome? It's actually, when you are on the bike, right, most of the big bikes, they falter at slow speeds, right? I think GS comes really close to being an amazingly stable bike at slow speeds, right? But this takes it to the next level altogether, right? Because of the mass centralization and the way it's held between your legs.
Actually, it's very well balanced.
Very well balanced. The seats really narrow. So for you to be flat footing on not so certain terrain, it's kind of easier. Right? Because even if the seat's about 820 mm, it's not exactly very high or very low. It's about just about...
Yeah, 820 is right about there.
Right about there, right? Though I can always move it to 840 as well. Because there's not much here, I can just be putting my foot down totally. I don't have to, put it like that.
Yeah.
Which leads to a little more feeling of stability. And once someone comes along with that feeling, it also adds to his confidence. Right, and therefore the ability to do more, right? In the traffic, this is amazing. There is no real heat. In the Ducatis, I'm sorry, but I have to say that, right? You get cooked, right? In this, no hassles. I've been stuck in long traffic jams, nothing. Like the fans work beautifully. The heat gets dissipated and taken away from your body.
Is it agile in traffic?
It's super. Like I said, I play with the KTM and the Pulsar boys. They think they have one up on me, but unfortunately they realize the hard way, right? Even if my ego is kind of creeping in here, right? But I've got more power at my disposal, so sorry, unfair advantage, right? And the flexibility adds to this. It's more sporty off the or an off-road situation, right? In terms of the speeds it can carry into a corner and the ease with which you can flick it, right? It carries a lot of, it allows the rider to be a lot more confident. Even someone who's, let's just say, very intermediate, mid-level. I'm not a beginner, but I'm not an expert, right? I feel more comfortable on this than I felt on any other ADV bike, and I've ridden ADV bikes enough to know them, Well, I know the differences between each. They're all beautiful. I think I'd love to own all of them, but I chose one.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know what's the best part about this bike? It's the fact that it feels like a grown-up dirt bike. It feels like an enduro machine more than an ADV machine.
Okay.
So off-road, you know, it's not a top-heavy machine like a few of the other bikes,
Okay.
right? One from Italy, one from the UK. They feel a little top-heavy, right? This one's not top-heavy, right? So for, like I said, for novice riders also, it becomes very easy for them to manage this, and they have their power at disposal.
So this is like the CRF 450 grown bigger.
Yeah, this is a CRF 450 on a steroid, right? I've done some dirt biking, you know, but those have been amazingly light machines, the DRZs and the CRF 450s. They've been nice. They're purpose built. They're so much fun. This is the only machine in its class to come close to those Suzukis and
usability
Hondas.
of those machines off-road.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the only machine that comes close to that in every aspect, being as easy to ride. And one thing that I absolutely love about this machine, it's as easy to ride off-road as it is to ride on-road in it. You don't have to slow down.
Okay.
That's just amazing. Every ADV rider will say this. But little more tricky thing, and if your skill levels anywhere, you know, close to mine, which is average, right, you have a little more tricky, you know, balancing act to do, right, which I don't have to do.
Right? You just need to switch the mode and then you say on the go, that's it.
On the go, right? So it's about lazy riding, which means expending less energy, right, so that you can go longer and have more fun. I think this bike takes me that much more ahead. There are, I think, three things that make this bike really stand apart from a lot of others. First is the fact that it has 21-inch wheels. Yes, it's not as stable on a full tilt corner when you're fully like knee scraping corner kind of a attack mode. You're on a ghat probably. When compared to an 18-incher, they're inherently more stable. But you wouldn't realize that unless until you know how an 18-incher behaves, and if you get to switch between
these two machines.
Yeah, so it's like some friends XRs and XCXs. When I switch from one to the other, I can feel the difference. But on its own, it's not like it's an unstable bike at all. Right? It's fairly stable. I've done fairly, and there are enough videos on YouTube. There's this really good video of this guy attacking the Donington Park in the UK. On this, and he's having a blast. He's taking super sports out, right? So because I think the braking is phenomenal, it's amazingly confidence inspiring. It's so progressive. There is a bit of a dive, but it's been dialed in.
Soft suspension.
It's been dialed in to also give comfort to the rider, right? Off-road essentially, when you don't want it to be too jarring. That's one, right? Second was braking. Third, I think, is the way I feel the bike setup, you know, the tires that the bike came with. I was not a fan of those, and I don't think many people are a fan of the Dunlop Trail Maxes, right? I'm using this opportunity to completely pan the Dunlop Trail Maxes. It's, I think, a pathetic choice that Honda has made in getting those tires down. I don't know a single rider who's not wanting to upgrade and change, because they're neither here nor there. They're not sticky on the tarmac, they're not good on the good off-road, right? That was a big drawback for a lot of us. On my first ride to Sakleshpur, right, wet ride complete, I had a few moments, and I came back, and when I went off-road, I was all over the place.
Does not give you confidence.
No, so I switched the tires, right? And there are multiple options available, fortunately. There are the Mita CO7s, there's the Heidenau K60s, TKC 80s are possibly the best, right? But their shelf life is very small. Heidenau is becoming a default choice, but I don't like that strip in the middle. I think on wet tarmac it's not very cool, and on wet mud, and I face a lot of wet mud. It's not probably, though I have some mates riding in the 80s with Heidenau, they're very happy. To each his own riding style, right? I am super happy with these Shinkos.
Okay.
right? Unfortunately, in India, the Shinkos cost me Shinko E805 and E804. They cost me the same amount as a little, say, a grand here or there from a Heidenau K60.
Okay.
But whereas in the Western Hemisphere, you can get them for literally 60% of the price of these tires, right? The Heidenau's. But apart from that, and these are essentially 40 tarmac, 60 off-road.
Okay.
But their performance on tarmac, their performance on wet tarmac, which is where most of the nobbies struggle, right, is phenomenal. That's because it doesn't have the Kenda big blocks, or it doesn't have like a profile which is square shoulder.
Yeah, not flat.
It's got a profile which is like a street tire, but it's got
knobs on.
knobs on. So it allows me to bang. There's no sudden transition when I'm leaned over, and there's a sudden transition from the knobs to the side wall. There's nothing like that, and it's quite sticky.
Okay.
It's probably going to be lasting me about, say, 8 to 10,000 kilometers.
Okay.
My riding style maybe about 7,000 kilometers maybe.
Okay.
TKC80s would have lasted me about 4,000 kilometers.
Okay.
So it's a great saving there, but it's extremely sticky on any kind of situation.
Okay.
And I think anybody buying this bike should upgrade.
Should upgrade immediately. In fact.
Immediately. I don't know I'm going to be booking the new Africa Twin also, because my brother and I, we've shared all our bikes always.
Okay.
He's also picking up an 80. I wouldn't name the bike we are not going to pick up.
Okay.
But I don't know what that's coming with. If it's coming with Trail Max also or not.
Okay, we are not sure.
Not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So I have to go to the dealership and ask them.
Okay, now let's talk about the most important part about owning a bike, and that is maintenance and service support. How has your experience been with the Honda service and support?
I would call it fantastic,
Okay.
right? Which fantastic describes the experience with the dealership.
Okay.
Incredible, right? I'll give you one instance, an anecdotal thing. So we were training to ride ADVs off-road with Brett and the Top Gun guys. I had some risers, much against advice. I had some risers put on and pivotable risers. The bike fell many times. I was learning. It twisted. I had taken the bar ends out and multiple things. And we were camping where this place was. All I had to do was call, our man from Silicon Honda and ask him, dude, I have this issue. What do I do? No problem. He got on his 80 and he rode all the way in the night. Once he shut the dealership, he rode all the way there in the night, because we were camping there. He came, he met us, right? He asked how was the day. He carried my all the parts and everything, right? And he was actually not meant to do that. I had asked him to give it to somebody in town who was going to come back the next day.
Okay.
But he was like, no, don't worry about it. I can't. There was some issue with coordination. They didn't answer the phone or whatever. They must have been on the bike, those guys. Okay. And he's just like, okay, listen, I'll just come over. How far is it? I said must be about 60 kilometers. No problem, I'm coming. Right? That shows you the amazing customer focus these guys have.
Okay.
I'm a little surprised, or a little question mark in my head on Honda as such. Because when I see the others, like the Triumph, like the BMWs, even Ducatis for that matter, right? Organize a lot of these events and
customer activities,
customer ride, getting the riders to ride better and therefore ride safer. Right? You're not hurting yourself, you're not damaging others.
A
lot of training, and a lot of my friends train. Like I have a friend who trains a lot of Tiger folks. Okay. Right? They've tied up with Triumph has tied up with Vijay Parmar in Himachal to kind of take a lot of Triumph riders from here. Okay. Right? I see this lacking on Honda aspect. Okay. Right? While it's an amazingly engineered machine, I think possibly more beautifully engineered machine than a lot of those machines. But somewhere it's left to the dealer to deal with the customers. Okay. And while the dealer is doing an amazing job, cost of service, for example, yes, that's not the dealer, that's Honda. Cost of service, and that's a beautiful engineering of the bike, right? Where it's peanuts, the cost of service compared to a 250cc bike also, right? But I still think that Honda needs to do more if they really want to
in terms
be
of really keeping the
more
group
visible,
together.
more right. This country is going beyond just the 100 cc's and the 150 cc's, right? There's space opening up at the top, right? And the likes of Kawasaki, Triumph, they're making the most of it, right? Whereas I don't see Honda really. They have one CBR 650, they have this, they have the Goldwing. Like 3 really nicely engineered machines, but
No customer
they need to
activity.
bring more bikes.
Yeah.
They need to bring the CRF 450. Please take this as an application for the CRF 450.
They do
You
it
have a
all.
customer right here for that. I can bring at least 11 more. I can guarantee that. But Honda needs to do more for its riders in the city. I mean, in the country. Sir.
So I can already see that you've done a lot of changes on your bike, a lot of new parts, a lot of new protection. So can you take us to detail what all you've done on your machine?
So it's going to be a long one.
Okay.
There are some needs and there are some wants.
Okay.
Wants are usually driven by vanity, right? Which could be, the color of the part that you put on, or the kind of box you choose, right?
Okay.
So I have Trax ADV, SW Motec Trax ADV side panniers,
Okay.
Hepco Becker top box.
Top box.
Right, I have soft luggage also when I'm doing trail and off-road. I prefer soft luggage because then my legs don't get less danger of it getting trapped. If I'm on a higher monsoon journey kind of a thing, higher runs, I probably take the panniers.
Hard box too, yeah.
To begin with, I began with the underbody protection.
Yeah,
The
bash
one
plate.
that comes with the bash plate was a very small bash plate.
Okay.
Like almost everybody, I did away with that, and I have got an SW Motec bash plate. The sliders on the forks,
Okay.
right, and in the back, I've got the basic ram mount. I have put a unifilter, foam filter which absorbs dust better. K&Ns really perform really great, but K&Ns get in a dusty
our
situation.
conditions,
Yeah,
not
it
great.
is a problem. So I put a unifilter. I've also have a Scott oiler, lube and oil system to kind of oil on the go. Of course, the biggest change of all, right, and which completely changed the feel of the machine was the Acros, the Acropower,
Yeah.
right? It's a full system. I've had to install a power commander to remap the ECU for that slightly. It keeps the bike running a little richer,
Okay.
right? Power, it doesn't run too lean.
Okay.
There are multiple other things, like this was plastic for some reason. I put an alt-rider
Metal box. Okay.
metal cover on the rear brake reservoir fluid reservoir. I have these foot pegs are actually really tiny, and everybody had apprehension about these. How are they going to do off-road, and how are they? I think they're phenomenal. I haven't had any issues. Though this is where the want versus need steps in. I want the SW Motec foot pegs that I've kind of there are 3 I've shortlisted on one. Shortlisted one, which is some titanium thing, foldable, slightly wider. I don't want it too wide because going between rocks and everything, I don't want rocks, logs, everything.
Got it.
It's nicer to have your feet also kind of
Together,
tucked in,
yeah.
rather than like widely spaced out. That's like an opportunity for your toe to slam a rock. Not nice. I did experiment with the windscreens.
Okay.
I used the Honda Tall one. I had to constantly see through it. Didn't like it. I do a lot of night riding.
Okay. So that explains the Denali lights as well.
Yeah, Denali lights. Yes, of course. I miss out Denali lights. They're my lifesavers. All my bikes, they have fog lights. In fact, fog lights at turn, and I have them angled outside because I want before the D4s, essentially Denali D4s.
Okay.
I used to have fog lights on all my Bullets, on my Triumphs, which used to be angled like this slightly.
Okay.
Because while I'm turning here, I want to see where I'm headed into, especially in a ghat road in the night.
Okay.
Right.
So better.
But the D4s are spot and spread.
Okay.
So they're amazingly bright, and the DR1s have a really long throw.
Okay.
So on a flat highway, and almost every Friday night, I'm headed out of town,
Okay.
and I get to my let's say the estate in Sakleshpur in the night, in the middle of the night.
Okay.
And on a big, long, flat out highway, the DR1's amazing. D4s are also fairly killer because they give me a complete spread. It's
How
like
about these stock headlights? How good are they? Are they bad?
stock headlights
or-
are okay.
Okay.
They're not really they're not bad.
Okay.
They're not bad, but they don't turn the night into a day.
Okay.
It's again a want versus need, right?
Yeah.
So to me, this was more of a want to be able to see better, right? I've got the brake extender for standing up and riding.
Okay.
I haven't installed it yet. It's lying at home. The brake extender where it's got a ridge like this, so while I'm standing, I could just use this portion to
For the braking.
for the braking. And when I'm sitting, I could actually just be
Come back to normal.
yeah. It's kind of it's nice. It's nicer than this.
Okay.
Is what the reviews say. I'll have to test it to tell you actually how it feels. But so far, there are some basic mods that you should do, like the sliders, like the bash plate.
Basically protection.
Protection should be, definitely there. I experimented with this MRA wind deflector windshield, which was really nice, but it was very tricky because it had a deflector here, which was fine, but it had two
The notches. Basically.
yeah, not
Clips,
like,
basically.
yeah, clips, and those clips were right in my vision,
Yeah, okay.
the sight of the line of sight. A little
Annoying. Yeah.
little annoying, right? So I had that removed, and I have gone back to the Honda stock
one.
So that's a long loop of wanting a new
Wind deflector.
yeah.
Better to
But
think.
I haven't stopped experimenting. So there is a bit of wind buffeting, little wind buffeting. I'm going to be possibly putting a Puig. I don't know if the pronunciation is correct. It's Puig. Puig windscreen, which I saw on a fellow Africa Twin Rider's bike,
That's
and I loved
essentially
it.
longer. So it's
Slightly longer, and it's kind of slightly curved. So
it,
it kind of
takes the wind coming onto the helmet.
right. So it's not like you in a hot weather you're cooking, behind the windscreen because it's not letting enough wind through. It's not like that. There's enough wind, but it's not buffeting. It's not like it's allowing you to do. I have done let's just say really seriously high speeds on this, and I've not had any issues with the wind.
Okay, Gautam, that is a lot of information on the Africa Twin. I'm sure it will help a lot of prospective buyers. In fact, owners who are looking to find out what you've done with your bike.
Well, thank you for having me actually, and allowing me a chance to share my experience of having had this bike for about just over 11,000 odd kilometers,
Okay.
which might not be much when you look at the time that I've had it for, which is about 6 months odd, 6 or 7 months odd.
Okay.
But couple it with the fact that I haven't done except one ride to Goa and back.
Okay.
Right, this bike hasn't really seen really long distances.
Yeah.
Right, I hit my farm, which is about 250 kilometers one way.
Okay.
Right, that's about the longest that I've been, and I've used it every day.
Okay.
In fact, all my other bikes are
that
feeling a
talks
little
about its usability.
total usability, man. City conditions, no problem. Whatever, dirt, no problem. And all my other bikes do feel bad because it's like I've married the Africa Twin, but I'm
It's getting all your attention now.
all my attention complete. I don't need any other bike. It's my if there's only one bike that I ought to have, it's this.
Okay.
Because all the other bikes that I have are purpose, they're
Yeah.
purpose built for something.
Yeah.
This is like all in one. I don't need a second machine essentially. I shouldn't be saying this. My other bikes will feel bad. Right? So, but thank you.
Thank you. So guys, the Africa Twin is a motorcycle that is easy to ride and comfortable wherever you take it. If you have any questions, do ask them below, and please hit that subscribe button.